Hi, this is May.
And I'm Joy.
Welcome to the QWERTY Writing Life podcast, where we have candid chats about our creative lives.
May and I are friends, writers, and creatives who want to share our endeavors out loud.
On this podcast, we're here to encourage each other, and you too,
and share tools we've discovered or made up.
So you can follow your passions with a little support. So grab your tea
or your coffee,
and let's get started. Hello everyone, it's another week.
Hello and welcome.
Today we are going to be doing a QWERTY workshop episode where we will be critiquing one of my poems. Yay! But before we do that, we're going to be talking about our creative weeks. So, Joy, what did you do?
So as you guys have probably noticed, if you are watching this, we are together, and that's because we are doing our QWERTY retreat. Woo! So a lot of my creative week has been in prepping for this weekend, not necessarily as I had hoped and planned, but more in let me see how I can creatively figure out how to get out of town to have the QWERTY retreat. So there you go.
I feel the exact same way. I think that my week went pretty much survival mode and like, how am I going to get to this place that we are supposed to be at? And I ended up being about 45 minutes late to the place too. So
it's okay.
Yeah, the days that I had planned to like do laundry and to pack and everything, we had a couple of things come up in emergency situations. So my husband covered one on Wednesday, and I took care of the kids and the homework and all of that stuff. And then on Thursday, I took care of that emergency situation while he in turn covered the kids and the homework and so on and so forth. So, but by the time Friday came around, I was just like, I don't even know what I need to do. I don't know. So I washed some clothes and and I ironed some things. But what I did do, I kind of multitasked a little bit. So I did the clothes and ironing and washing the dishes and getting the house in order so that the guys could have a dude weekend. And
Nice.
And could have it in a clean household. But while I was doing that, I did look up Billy Collins' masterclass, which was so good. I'm not even through with it. I'm on like less than 16 or something like that. But while I was doing all that, I was listening to the masterclass, and he was so good. It was exactly what my soul and my spirit and my creative muse and everything, all of those things needed to hear while I prepped for the house. I was prepping my mind and my creativity for this weekend. It was chef kiss. So good.
Multitasking for the win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and normally that doesn't work very well. But because I was doing these monotonous things, these things that didn't take a lot of brain power, I think that I was able to consume and internalize the stuff that I was hearing from Billy Collins, who, by the way, I just want to like have him a part of my family, and I want him to be like my grandpa. I want to like sit by the fire and listen to him telling me stories of the good old days, that kind of thing. Like he just seems like the best kind of person. So
he is adorable. And his poetry, wow. Yeah.
Wow. I already knew I liked his poetry. Now I know that I also like him as like a person. So, you know. Yay. He's so sweet. So,
and that's perfect to let's get right into poetry.
Yes.
Because that's what we're going to be critiquing, giving you kind of a little peek behind the curtain, so to speak, of how we've kind of been doing a little bit of this weekend, because May is, and she can talk more about it, but I'm so proud of her. She's finishing up her poetry book, and I have gotten to watch some of her work on it this weekend and do a little bit of critiquing. So you guys are going to get to see how we actually do this. Like this is us doing this.
So if you don't know, Joy and I are critique partners. And so pretty much anything that's going to go out into the world of mine goes by Joy's eyes. And she does a brilliant job of helping bring out the message that I want to convey into my prose and my poetry. So I gave Joy a very kind of raw poem that I wrote this weekend, and I got it the best that I could in the time that I had. And then I said, hey, Joy, here it is. And we decided to do a workshop on this. So we are going to show you our critiquing method and also show you how to critique some poetry. I don't know if a lot of people know about how to critique poetry, but
That's true. That's true. And like, just to be complete, like total behind the curtain, we talked through a couple of points, a metaphor part that she was working on. So we kind of had some brainstorming talking going earlier in the day. And then that was pretty much it. So
yeah. The brainstorming talking, and also you saw my extreme rough draft, like the notepad on pen writing down. And that's how I start my poetry. Like I start with a piece of paper and a pen. I don't get to the computer yet until I am ready to start revising and editing. Yeah. So once I feel like I've got the main thoughts down in a pretty good structure in mind, then I move to the computer. So what we did after that, once I got it on the computer and I got it in a way, the best that I could make it, then I handed the computer off to Joy, and she has taken some notes. I do not know what her notes say. So hopefully there's some good things in there. And hopefully I'm not going to be too embarrassed. But, you know, if I am, this is all a part of it. It's all about being, creativity makes us vulnerable. And vulnerability makes us have good relationships with other people. And it brings us into a place that is just where we are able to hear things, accept things, and love things about ourselves, even the things that aren't imperfect. So that's a short lesson.
There you go.
All in itself. So,
and you know, as we say, and we've said this a number of times in many episodes, and you guys know we have our book, Finders Keepers, a practical approach to find and keep your writing critique partner. So we talk about this often, that critiquing in a partnership like this comes from a place of love and a desire to make your partner the absolute best that they can be, because that's what it's all about. Like, you know, y'all know that I'm proud of her. I love her poetry, and I cannot wait for it to be out in the world, and I want it to be her absolute best. So, woo!
Yes. So, also on that same topic, Finders Keepers has been in the world for 1 year and 2 days.
That is true. Well, no, by the time they watch this, it will be a few more days. But yes, December 10th was the first birthday
of Finders Keepers.
Oh,
yes.
baby.
Yes, and we revisited the information that's in Finders Keepers in order to do a series for this podcast about creative critique partners, to kind of take that writing critique partner thought and expand it into all creative elements. So when we revisited that, we also found that, hey, it all still applies. So it's an evergreen type book, and these are things that, you know, touch a lot of different areas. But so if you want to go take a look at that episode series, or maybe even the book, we'll put the link to the series. Maybe the first episode of the series, would that be good?
Yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah, so like the first episode of the series, and also the link for the book if you decide that you want to know more.
Yeah.
So here it is, all in practice.
There you go.
Okay. Let's start the workshop?
Let's start.
Let's do it.
So May is going to start off by reading us what she has.
Okay? Yes. So this is what Joy has critiqued for me. This is called Someone Else's Surprise. It was like walking into a room and seeing a dead body strewn on the floor. The small cardboard box had black scuffs and smudges. It had traveled far, maybe even beyond the grave. My eyes skimmed the hard lines before resting on the label's handwriting. Long, thin strokes, close proximity, slightly slanted, deliberate effort. Because when you were in your 20s, your right arm had almost been cut off. And the older you got, the less you liked to write. I knew they were words, but I couldn't read them. An emotion leapt from my knees to my eyes and numbed the top of my head, of all things. Whatever the emotion, it blocked my brain from understanding what I saw. It played on my naivety too, tricking me into thinking that you planned this alongside your death. That you thought of how this would rip me apart and had made a way to stitch me back together. The package was just 3 years too late. I thought I'd come so far. The effort of dealing with you, all these years around your mound of dead dirt soiled my shoes, only got me to mile marker 1. I didn't know I'd been waiting for a comment from you. You liked last words. Silly girl, I told myself. You are still broken. Whose is this? Shock shifted my voice, and the young college students, who had never been hastily, hazardously stitched together this way and expected to live, stood frozen and scared of this man-made creature they had no label for. A student worker's dad sent him a package? A brave soul said. Isn't that nice? My eyes didn't clear, so I took her at her word. The package was someone else's surprise, not a message from the dead. My lips parted. I don't think they quite made it to a smile. Excuse me for so many things. In the bathroom stall, all the flesh-colored thread I used to hem me inside my skin disintegrated. I will entertain one more time. Rays of sun spotlighted the main event for you. Frankenstein's monster crumpled piece by piece on the yellow tile floor. And that's the end.
Whew. Her poetry is just so rich and deep and emotional. Like you just get those emotions out there in a way that makes your reader actually feel them as they're reading through. And that's one of the things I love about your poetry.
Well, thank you.
Yes. So, all right. So
not a lot of laughter. Let me just, so there's not a lot of laughter in that poem, but it is the one that I wrote today. It is the one that I needed critiqued. And so Joy graciously complied.
Well, and maybe we should have said this at the beginning, but your book is, grief is the theme through this book.
Yes, and how we deal with it. And this particularly was about how we can relapse into grief, and how grief is not just a straight line, and it's not a disease to get over. It's not a disease to cure. It's something that's going to become a part of you, and it's going to be something that comes back. And even sometimes in surprising ways, like a package that isn't yours on your work desk. So,
yeah. So, typically, with critiques, if you're doing something more prose, there might be like a kind of general overall comments or, big picture items about something like character arc or something like that. So, and that's more in, prose. With poetry, I love the fact that we're here together, because I really kind of prefer this with poetry, because it's so much easier to go through line by line. And with poetry, I'm not going to maybe make such a line in the sand suggestion as I would with prose. Like with prose, it's a little bit easier where it's like, you need to lose this and do this. Not all the time, but sometimes. With poetry, it's so much more subjective. So some of the things that I'm going to go through with May are going to be things that we're going to chat about.
yes.
Because I want to know, okay, what was your intent with this? And that kind of thing. So just a little bit of how poetry critique is going to definitely be different from like a prose critique.
Yeah. I would definitely say there are more questions than comments on a poetry critique.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And this is just beneficial because I can get the answers right here, and then we can bounce back and forth until she has what she decides is the best thing to do.
Yes.
So,
and at the end of this, after Joy finishes with this, we're going to take a break. I'm going to make some edits, and then we'll come back at the end with a final draft.
yay!
Yeah?
Love.
Okay.
All right, so satisfying. So, all right, I've already gushed, so I'm not going to gush anymore. I'll gush more later.
That's fine.
But let's start out the very first line. I almost feel like maybe having a line after.
Okay.
And just leaving that, because it's such a strong, and we talked about this earlier, her first line is such a strong line. Just having that little bit of separation. I know you guys can't see this, but having a little space between that and the next sentence, just to kind of set that apart.
Now, do you think it needs to be like a white space, or do you think it needs a line in it, like words in addition to? When you say a line.
Oh, yeah, no, I just mean a space in between, just like you have
like a
there,
physical
white space.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay.
So, then when we get down here to, all right, the small cardboard box had black scuffs and smudges. It had traveled far, maybe even beyond the grave. I wonder if that's a little too on the nose. The maybe beyond, even beyond the grave.
Gotcha.
So that could be something to think through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I have thoughts, we can always come back to it.
And we'll
I'm
see
not
what other
sure.
changes need to be made too.
Yeah.
And see if we maybe move that. I don't want to delete it just yet. I just want to see. I highlighted it. I highlighted that line to revisit as we go through.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because, not always am I going to have like a specific suggestion for something. So, and also there will be something a little further down that this could
fit with.
Yeah.
And the thing about poetry too is that it's not just the words, it's not just the stanzas. Sometimes it is about the white space that is around it. It's the visual look of the poem as well. So I love that Joy has given me notes on the visual look too.
Yeah. Okay.
The visual look.
The visual look.
The visual. There's only one way to look, and it is visually, I suppose. But
we are emphasizing this, people.
But on the page, how the poem looks on the page is a part of the poem. Yeah. Presentation key.
Yes. Okay. So I had a question. What did you mean by my eyes skimmed the hard lines? What hard lines are we talking about?
The hard lines of the cardboard box.
Okay. That's what I thought, but I wasn't really sure, and I wanted to ask you. So that could be a little unclear, maybe. I don't know, but I also don't know what.
I'm going to highlight that too.
Yeah, and we can come back to that.
Yes.
Once again, I think maybe an extra little white space before you get to where she has long, thin strokes. Then she goes to the next line, close proximity.
Each one?
No.
Okay.
Just that right there.
Okay.
Slightly slanted, deliberate effort, because when you were in your 20s. I love that. And so separating that out, I think would be really good.
Okay.
Just to give a little added punch to those, that almost like a bullet list kind of thing. All right. Let's see. Head. Where was that?
I could tab these in, or
I think that would be kind of cool. You could probably do.
Oops.
Well, there are a number of things that you could do.
I could actually put a bullet point there.
You could. Though my eyes skimmed the hard lines before resting. Okay, so they're resting on the handwriting. You could also do commas after each thing.
Instead of this? Instead of tabs?
Possibly.
We're talking about the presentation, folks. Yeah. Poetry is about presentation as well.
And sometimes, like, seeing it done different ways. And then, well,
we don't need one there. Yeah. Well, and another thing too, I'm wondering is I'm going to have to go back and look at capitalizations and stuff because there is an automatic capitalization on my word processor right now.
That's
so
true.
I'm kind of liking the lowercase situation because it's not a complete sentence. It's whenever I'm processing this information, I'm not processing it clearly. Like I'm processing it in segments of what, like almost... Well, it's trauma, it's like...
Yeah. It's not complete thoughts because in the moment you're not capable of complete thoughts.
Exactly. So these short, lowercase phrases are important, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
And also, I think you can tell here too, because the only thing that is explained is a memory of the person who's passed. So I think that you can maybe see that she wants it to be from him.
Yes, definitely. That certainly comes through.
Okay.
Yeah. I think you did a good job of that. It starts out with such a punch of a line, and then you get into a small cardboard box, like how on a desk, like how that's kind of an everyday item. And now we're coming back to that punch and we're realizing, the depth meant in this.
So going back to hard lines, since that was a thing. So you were just talking about a small cardboard box on a desk. Maybe my eyes skimmed the desk before resting on the label's handwriting, or my eyes skimmed the room because, I think the room.
The room?
Yeah, because you're looking for a person to make sense of this.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't you think you're trying to make sense of it all, and the only thing that you can find is a handwriting that looks familiar on a label.
Yeah.
Yeah?
I think that could work really well there.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to keep it highlighted, but we can make sure that fits later.
Okay.
Cool.
I like it. All right. So now skipping down here, I love how she says, an emotion leapt from my knees to my eyes and numbed the top of my head, of all things. I love that. And I mentioned that to her earlier today, that's one of those weird feelings that if you've had that feeling before, as you read that, you're going to have that feeling. And I love when that comes into one of her poems. So I'm thinking that maybe you need a comma after head, because numbed the top of my head, of all things. You have that pause there.
Yeah, and it's not a part of the sentence. It's like an aside. Independent clause. Yeah, an aside, like a dependent clause kind of thing where it needs to be separated. Yeah. Yes, I like aside. That's very nice.
It's an aside, because it's like you have this feeling, and then you're like, of all things, like, makes no sense.
So tell me this, would you, since that is such a strong thing, would you maybe move those two lines in front of I knew they were words, but I couldn't read them? So it goes from the older you got, the less you like to write. Ooh. An emotion leapt from my knees to my...
Yes, I think you're right.
Okay.
Good thought.
Okay. There.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a better flow.
I agree.
I agree with you there. Good job. Woo. All right. Teamwork. Okay.
What you got next?
So next, all right, now just hear me out and see what you think about this.
Okay.
Okay, I have to find it. That you thought of how.
There's too much stitching. So if you can help me with that too.
Okay.
Well, I don't know.
We'll get to that in a second.
Sorry, I interrupted you. I apologize.
That's okay.
It's not good to interrupt your critique partner. So.
Oh, yes. Thinking out loud is what we do. All right. So we have, it played on my naivety too, tricking me into thinking that you planned this alongside your death, that you thought of how that would rip. And had made this way to stitch me back together.
Yes.
Okay, so you had planned this alongside your death, that you thought of how that would rip me apart, talking back to the death part, and had made this way to stitch me back together. Now, we do have those two that's kind of close together, so might need to kind of rethink a little bit.
Okay, let's see. This, that, and which one?
So you have that planned. Oh, you've got three that's. So, yeah, okay. Tricking me into thinking.
We don't need
that one.
Yeah, that one goes.
Boom.
Yeah.
Little editor tip for you guys. You don't always need that. In fact, quite a few times you don't. But make sure you read it out loud so that you don't delete one that you really do need.
Yes.
Tip.
All right. If you can read a sentence, take out the that, and it still makes sense, then it goes.
Yes, always. All right. Into thinking you planned this alongside your death, that you thought of how that would rip me apart. Okay.
Okay, what about this one?
Do a semicolon
here
instead of the comma and get rid of that. See what I did there?
Let's see. Tricking me into thinking you planned this alongside your death. You thought of how that would rip me apart and made this way. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that works.
Yes, and I do like the semicolon instead of a period too, because these two things are so close together. I want to connect them.
Yeah, for sure. They need to stay together. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I like that.
And then, do you think this needs to be its own line?
Yes, actually, that was my next thing.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
I think, yes, for sure, a break.
Okay.
All right. I noticed, let's see, 3 years. When you read the package was just 3 years too late.
Okay.
Do you want that too in there?
I do.
Okay.
Do you?
I think that's good.
Okay.
All right. I made a note as you were reading. I was like, oh, she added that in there. All right. Now, this is just a question, and this might be a ponder kind of situation. Shoes. I'm wondering if there could be something more specific, but I don't. It's already wordy, so you don't want to add any more than one word. Like it still needs to just be a single word if you change it, but I'm just wondering if you make shoes something more specific, we're going to see it more clearly.
The hem of my black dress. No?
Yeah, you could. It's just making it more wordy.
It is, but let's see if we can take out some of those words. And also,
me black dress, me hearty.
Did you just make a pirate joke about my dad's funeral?
I love you. Look,
so insensitive.
Insert some humor. You're the one who wrote like a pirate.
I'm the one who wrote like a pirate. Literally, that's what you had to say. Well, I guess that's true.
It is true. Okay.
Okay, so this when I was reading this, it felt clunky and weird.
And you had trouble reading it.
I did have trouble reading it. So maybe there's not a interruption to the sentence. Maybe I take that out and we get to here.
Maybe it should be up here if you're going to put it somewhere.
Maybe, let's see. So far. I thought I'd come so far, all these years after your mound of dead dirt soiled the hem of my black dress. The effort of dealing with you only got me to mile marker 1.
Yeah.
Yeah, does that work?
Now that's not a complete sentence, though I don't know that it necessarily has to be.
Let's see what we got.
Oh, you put those together. Okay, let's see. I thought I'd come
so far, all these years after. I like that image that soiled the hem of my black dress. I liked that image. Do you know,
should it be maybe in all these years? There's something not right there.
Okay. I thought I'd come so far after all these years. Maybe?
Yes, and take that after out.
After all these years, your mound of dead dirt. Oh, hold on. After all the years, no. This modifies the time period.
Right.
So
I thought I'd come so far after all these years. Since. I'm wondering if there's a since.
Yes.
Maybe?
Since your mound of dead dirt soiled the hem of my black dress. And then I'm wondering too, come so far, if we even need this line, that we might be able to cancel out the effort of dealing with you.
Yes, and we get right to that punch of I didn't know, I'd been waiting.
So I thought I'd come so far after all these years since. I almost want to break it there after since. Since your mound of dead dirt soiled the hem of me black dress. Oh my gosh, I did write like a pirate.
She did. That's what I said. Oh, thought.
Yes.
What about breaking and putting since down there?
Because I want to make sure that this flows.
Ah, okay.
So I don't want this to feel like a sentence break. I want the reader to know that the sentence is continuing down here. And that this is a punch.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I like that.
Okay.
All right, so my next thought for you was on the next line.
Okay.
I didn't know I'd been waiting for a comment from you. And then your next line was you liked last words. So instead of waiting for a comment, I'm wondering about I didn't know I'd been waiting for closing remarks from you.
Oh, what about a signpost?
A signpost.
Or a postscript. Isn't that a PS?
Oh, postscript, yes.
Yes. Do you like that?
That could work. Yes. Because, and that fits better with the written versus, I mean, it's not something spoken.
That's something that you'd see on a letter.
Might need to check and see if that's one word or two. I can look that up for you later.
Here, I'll highlight it just to make sure that we don't forget.
Okay. I like that. Very good.
And then you liked last words. So that's even after the signature, like the with love.
Yep.
And then PS.
Yep. That's perfect.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that up because I didn't like that word either and I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. Very good. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay. So I have, and to tell y'all what I'm going to be talking about since you can't see it. So she has the line where it's silly girl, I told myself you are still broken. And that's italicized because it's a thought. Well, now she has a few spoken words and she has those italicized as well. I'm thinking since you have the thought, I think that you need to make the spoken words in quotation marks.
Okay, let's give it a look. Okay.
Good.
Whose is this?
That way, and especially since you're coming directly from a thought to something that's spoken, it could be a little confusing and it takes a minute to figure out what's going on.
I agree. And I was reading something. Oh, it was excuse me. That was weird. So we'll address that when we get there.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll do the same with what the people in the office said.
Yes.
Oh, other way.
Oh, yes. That period just didn't want to stay in there, did it?
And then, yeah, perfect. That way there's no confusion. Anyway. Confucius.
Say,
Confucius would say. And then excuse me would be as well, because you did actually say that out loud.
Now tell me this, because I think poetry is meant to be read out loud.
I agree.
And when I was reading that, I felt like there was a disconnect there in the meaning, because excuse me is something that I said out loud. And then for so many things is a thought. So
right.
So I think I can identify that written, but I need some sort of tagline there so that when it's verbalized, or do I just make sure that I say, I don't think they quite made it to a smile. Excuse me. For so many things.
Yeah, there just needs to be a beat there. So instead of, like, I don't know that I would italicize it because, well, I would, though, maybe separate and put a break there.
Oh, okay. What about, because it's not complete, either an ellipsis or one of them doodads that does this. Oops.
Oh, an M dash?
Yes.
I have to think.
Because it's not like I'm not through, because the thought continues.
Yeah.
And then would that be lowercase?
I did not bring my Chicago manual with me. I would look something up typically.
Well, I will highlight that, but you don't think there needs to be a tag?
I don't think so. I think if you add a punctuation, and I think that M dash would be correct for you there. All right, voice. And where is that? Voice and.
Voice and?
Is it no?
I don't think
We're
I
almost
said
at the end.
voice.
Maybe it was back up here. Oh, that's right, because we just did. I skipped ahead looking at the
Oh, up here.
quotation marks instead of
voice
italics.
and, okay.
Yes. Okay, you need my voice, comma, and the young college students who had never.
Yes. So, do we like this without a tag? Instead of a tag, I have shock shifted my voice and the young college students. And does this need an M dash? Who had never been hastily, hazardously stitched together this way and expected to live, M dash,
I have
stood
thoughts on
frozen.
that.
Okay, yes, okay.
Yeah, we'll get there. You could actually maybe just have whose is this by itself, because
Nobody else has spoken yet.
yeah, no one else has spoken, and you said it, and now having that break would give you that shock shifted my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought, or even.
Or could I do this, like put a period here, and then move this down?
That actually might be better. Okay, so let me look at what I was going to suggest for this. First of all, you do not need the comma after hazardously.
Okay. After it, not before it.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, hazardly stitched together. All right. Instead of, just hear me out and see what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Hazardously stitched together and expected to live as I had. Okay, so take out this way.
Okay.
Stitched together and expected to live. And you could even put this in parentheses, as I had been. Because I knew what you were meaning here, but I didn't think it was completely clear that you're comparing them to you and how they haven't faced a grief like you have.
Yes. Tell me this. I like this edition. So first of all, let me say I like this edition. But I'm wondering if it shouldn't be more than just me. Because there are so many people who have graduated is the wrong word, but has transcended maybe even to this level of grief beyond just me.
Yeah.
So is there something that's like hazardously stitched together and expected to live as so many of us, or
as those on higher planes of grief or something like that. I mean, I know we're just making it a little bit more wordy, but I'm thinking we're going to end up needing to maybe cut this in some kind of way too.
Yes. I just want to kind of make a separation between the adults and the, or the, not even adults, because young people can go through this too. It's
right. I think maybe instead of having this as a clause, the young college students had never been hastily, hazardly stitched together and expected to something, period. They stood frozen and scared of this. I think having a break there, so getting rid of the who and making this 2 sentences would be one thing that we could do to help with the wordiness.
Yes, and I like that it's more direct, I think, too. This
that's
word
still, that's still not right.
Yeah,
but
this word right here, there's the word entertain that comes down here. I wonder if we use perform, expected to perform.
Yeah, that would be good.
If that would, because that's more of a
Expected
societal.
to perform, and you could almost do like a comma, grief buried deep, or something about.
So
the
maybe
grief
it's not
having
about.
to be...
maybe it's not about the people. Maybe it's about Yeah, okay. The young college students had never been hastily, hazardously stitched together and expected to perform anyway. I mean, it could be as simple as that, or we could go bigger. And they stood?
Yeah. Well, have you said anything, like, have you actually used the word grief? Or
No, I haven't.
And that may not be the right word, but I'm wondering if we can use a more specific word like that there.
Well, we talk about an unnamed emotion. And this is more than grief. It's different than grief because this is, I don't even know what it was.
Which section is this in?
Relapse.
Okay. And so this is, you know, really looking at the fact that grief is going to come and rise up at any point. And that's the point of this, that it could be something as simple as a cardboard box on a desk that raises this again and punches you in the gut when you're least expecting it.
So maybe we need to name that.
I'm thinking perhaps
had never been maybe here is where we need to say it. You know what I mean? The young college student had never been.
And that's twice that you've read it singular. You have it written as plural. Do you want it as singular? Student instead of students?
No, there were more than one.
Okay.
And only one of them spoke up. So, a little biographical, I guess.
Yeah.
The young college students had never been something by grief.
Never been
Undone.
That could work. Had never been
Undone by grief. I'm gonna highlight that.
You could put surprised by grief.
Oh.
And
that is also in the title.
It's a switch from, it's a twist on Surprised by Joy, which is C.S. Lewis's book about the death and grieving for his wife.
Yes. Oh, that was... Whoa.
Yeah, that was
a... Stunned is also another word. Because I don't want this to get confused with someone else's surprise, or I might need to change the title.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe have never been stunned by grief, have never hastily, hazardously stitched themselves back together. Maybe that.
Yeah.
I don't know. No, because the grief is something that's in the past. And so it's more of like a revisit of the trauma of grief. That's the emotion, I think, that's here.
Okay. Well, you could even say that. Had never been
Revisited
by the ghost of grief past. That might be a little too cheesy. Yeah, probably. But revisited by...
I'm just going to write it as I said it, and then we can make it pretty.
Yeah.
Visited by the trauma of grief. And then... hastily, hazardously stitched back together. Not normally. That's not the right word, but that's... I need something better. I need something better than that. Hastily, hazardously stitched back together and expected to perform. Maybe we could even go back to the entertainment thought. So, expected to perform.
Naturally. To perform naturally.
Not in public. Naturally? I don't mind naturally. I'm going to write it down.
And it's also the picture of doing this as if nothing were wrong. Like,
yes.
It's a picture of
perform in
societal expectations.
Yes, uninhibited in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to highlight that too. Come back to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that section's going to need just a little bit more fine tuning.
A little more loves.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you have any more notes about that?
No, I don't think I did on that section. Okay, they had no label. Let's see, where is that? They stood frozen and scared of this man-made creature. They had no label, and you read it for. They had no label for. And that's what you meant. I wasn't entirely sure, but there was another thing that perhaps they had no...
Could we make that 2 sentences? I'm wondering if that whole thing is so wordy that we might need to... They stood frozen and scared. They had no label for this man-made creature.
Yes, and I was also going to suggest that you even add, just to make it clear that this man-made creature they're talking about is you. So that it's bringing it back to you.
I had become, or I transformed, mutation.
This creature that croaked before them, or that... Like, how would your voice have sounded when you asked that?
They had no label. Named creature. That's not the right word.
No.
Yeah, but they had no label for this man-made creature.
Or if you're going to use the naturally thing, you could have it as a thing in this unnatural man-made creature, or have something about it, standing unnaturally or standing like, and that maybe you wouldn't use that word exactly. But whatever, that way it brings us back to the beginning of this, where we're reminded that you said something. You had a question.
I like that.
And now we're going to get the answer.
And this shifted my voice. And how did it shift my voice? How did the shock shift my voice? Insert here. Okay. I'm going to just highlight that and move on.
That works.
Okay.
All right. Now, you've got the word dead or death quite a few times. Okay. So when we came down here, not a message from the dead, I thought instead not a message from the grave. Now, as you were reading, I noticed you did use the word grave up there, and that was that place that I think you might be going back to look at again anyway.
Maybe even beyond the grave. Okay.
So if you change that or take that out, then that might be perfect, because you've got dead and death several times. I didn't count exactly, but... Okay,
so I need to Control F some dead and death.
Apple F.
Apple F Control. It's the same thing. The same thing. She's a... Oh, there is a control on here. What do you use the control for on a Mac?
Nothing that I use on a very common basis. So... I don't know.
If you guys know what the control is used for on a Mac, we'd like to know.
I don't use it on a daily basis, I can tell you that, so it's must not be that important.
Okay, let's move on. 51 minutes into the thing.
I know, right? Goodness gracious. Okay.
I didn't think it was going to take this long.
My bad.
No.
All right, dead and grave. Okay. You needed to add, I used... Where is this? I had used. I think you need to add that in.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. All right. And then to him, now when you read it, it made sense.
Okay.
But reading this, I wasn't really sure what I was reading.
Gotcha.
All the flesh-colored thread I had used to hem me inside
To hem me inside my skin disintegrated.
Yeah.
Okay, in the bathroom stall, all the flesh-colored thread disintegrated. I had, no.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. I had used to... You're basically saying to keep me inside my skin.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the word hem is the issue there.
Okay.
And I know why you're using that, because it's a sewing term.
It is.
And it makes sense.
With the thread and the stitching and such.
Right.
But it's not good. And that's okay. I need to know.
Yeah.
So it's okay. I'm going to highlight that section and find a way to condense it into something where maybe even I can still use it.
Could you just say, all the flesh-colored thread I had used to hem my skin disintegrated, and just leave out the me inside? To hem my skin.
Potentially.
Because when you hem a garment,
Mm-hmm.
you're simply tucking the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So you would be hemming your skin.
Yes, but also whenever they use hem in the Bible and Psalms, it means to, like when it says, like when you're hemming me in, it's like the person's on the inside and you are covered on all four sides and you're safe. So it's like a false sense of security. And that's one reason why I used the me inside. You know, it's kind of a play on the word him.
Right. Okay. I was just wondering if maybe there was confine.
But I wanted that security, the false sense of security. Because who would have thought that the thread could just disintegrate? Mm-hmm. You know, like I've patched myself. You know? But I'll definitely think about that and see if there's a better way that I can present that will make it more understandable to you and to whoever reads it.
One other word potentially, and I know that's getting away from, but edge.
That's okay.
Just a thought.
Edge for what?
Instead of hem, to edge. Anyway, probably not, because I know why you're wanting to keep the hem part.
Yes, and it's okay. I'll figure something out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Then we have down here, rays of sun spotlighted. What if you did my main event for you instead of just the main event? So it's clear that like this is something that I'm having to do. Yeah.
And I'm hoping too that this kind of shows that it was not a very, it wasn't a perfect relationship too. Like,
once
she's
again,
coming, like this is, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then I wondered if you really wanted to use crumbled instead of crumpled, because crumple, I'm seeing a piece of paper being balled up.
Okay.
Crumble, I'm seeing something fall apart.
And see, and crumble for me is I'm crumbling up a piece of paper. And crumple kind of means like falling in a pile on the floor, but I could be wrong.
Okay, so crumble, to break into small pieces, to fall into small pieces, to break down completely.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, now let's look.
That's the B.
That's the B.
Okay. Yeah,
now
look up crumble and see what.
To press, bend, or crush out of shape, to rumple, to cause to collapse.
Okay.
But it's not into pieces. To become crumpled.
To become crumpled.
A wrinkle or crease made by crumpling. And that's the noun for it, but the verb, to press, bend, or crush out of shape.
Okay, so I'm going to use the B.
I think that would be better.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So I guess...
And one final thought, this is the last thing. I found myself needing one final something.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that was.
I just added a line. Just added a line. It's not what I want, but I also found myself wanting something whenever I was reading it. And so Frankenstein's monster crumbled piece by piece onto the yellow tiled floor. And then...
And when you read that, you said on two instead of on. Do you want on two?
I did say
I think that's an interesting, and this is something that she does, and I do too with my own writing, even prose. Like, if you read it out loud, you might notice things that you wouldn't otherwise if you were just scanning the page.
Yes.
And especially in poetry, like reading it out loud, sometimes words get tossed in there that you're like, yes, I wanted that. That needs to be there.
Yes. Yes, there needs to be a last line. Okay. Is there anything else?
That's it.
Okay, so we're going to take a break, a little time out, if you will. And I'm going to revise this, and we'll come back and close this out with a new reading and maybe a QWERTY challenge. We'll see what we can do.
There you go.
Okay.
All right, see you in a few minutes.
Okay. Bye. Well, you're going to be like very soon. Will be a little while. Okay, no clarification needed. Bye. And we're back. Hi. Did you have a good break?
We have been working.
That's true.
Yes.
Very much so. And thanks to Joy's critique, I have a better poem.
Yay!
I still have to, I think I'm going to redo the title, but that can come later because it's quite late. But I have edited, based off of the critiques, the poem to be something I'm quite proud of. Yeah?
Yay! Good.
So, was there anything that we needed to do before we read?
I don't think so. I think while we were on break over here, May was working really hard on all of the edits, and then we did do some more back and forth, some brainstorm together. Clarification. She asked for clarification. She asked me to listen to a couple of the things, and just kind of had a little bit more back and forth banter. So
yes.
Yeah.
So it is really cool that we are able to do this in a room together. If we weren't in the room together, we could send emails to each other. We could call each other on the phone. We could even potentially do a Skype or something like that.
Yeah, and we've done that before.
Yes, we have. Especially when we've been on deadline. If we're not on deadline, we can wait a little bit longer. But there is something really, really magical about finishing, particularly a poem in one sitting. And that comes along with the critique, I think. So let's go ahead and read the end result, and you guys can see how critiquing can help your poetry as well as your prose. And so here we go. It was like walking into a room and seeing a dead body strewn on the floor. The small cardboard box had black scuffs and smudges. It had traveled far. My eyes skimmed the room before resting on the label's handwriting. Long, thin strokes, close proximity, lightly slanted, deliberate effort. Because when you were in your 20s, your right arm had almost been cut off. And the older you got, the less you liked to write. An emotion leapt from my knees to my eyes and numbed the top of my head, of all things. I knew they were words, but I couldn't read them. Whatever the emotion, it blocked my brain from understanding what I saw. It played on my naivety, too, tricking me into thinking you planned this alongside your death. You thought of how that would rip me apart and had made this way to stitch me back together. The package was just 3 years too late. I thought I'd come so far since your mound of dead dirt soiled the hem of my black dress. I didn't know I'd been waiting for a postscript from you. You liked last words. Silly girl, I told myself. You're still broken. Whose is this? Shock mangled my voice. A student worker's dad sent him a package, a brave soul said. Isn't that nice? My eyes didn't clear, so I took her at her word. The young college students had never been revisited by the trauma of grief, never had to hastily, hazardously stitch back together to perform another's expectations. They stood frozen and scared. They had no label for the man-made creature I had become, clutching at her rupturing seams. The package was someone else's surprise, not a message from beyond the grave. My lips parted. I don't think they quite made it to a smile. Excuse me. For so many things. In the bathroom stall, I watched the even stitches hemming me in disintegrate. It had taken so long to match the threads to my uneven skin tone. Why didn't I notice the dry rot before? In seconds, they became dust motes suspended in sun rays. Frankenstein's monster crumbled, piece by piece, onto the yellow tile floor, undone once more. The end. Thank you.
Very good. Very, very good.
Good. Thank you. So you can see the transformation is much more mature. It's a more streamlined, smooth piece, I think, now than it was from the very beginning.
Yeah.
There were some very choice words. And it's so funny because in poetry you can spend a long time on a word trying to find the proper one. So I think that this is much more, it's much closer to the vision, the theme that I had in mind when I started writing this, and I wanted to express a particular emotion that I don't have a name for. So, so thank you, Joy, for helping me make it what it is.
It's so good. So good. Yay.
Okay.
All right. So, anything else on this?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay,
Do you have anything else to say about critiquing?
I don't think so. I hope that you guys have seen how helpful this can be and how great it is for both people. The critiquer and the critiqued. I don't know. That's not even, whatever. It's late and I'm tired. But
So I have a question for you. Can you tell us if there's anything that you learned from this experience? Because I've gained so much. I think it's very obvious what I've gained. But how about you on your end as the person who had to perform the critique?
For sure. I think one of the biggest things, and especially with poetry, is understanding the author's intent. You know, when you're just the reader, you may not know that, and you may never know the actual intent of the author. But as the critiquer, that's something that you do need to know a lot of times. I'm not going to say across the board, but in our case, I think that it was very important for me to understand what you were trying to say and the effect you wanted to make. And that helped me give you some suggestions to help you achieve that goal. So I think just understanding the thoughts behind and the heart behind poetry, and also thinking through different ways to say things. I think with this one, a big thing that we talked a lot about was the whole metaphor thing with Frankenstein's monster, and not wanting it to be so in your face, wanting it to be a little bit more subtle, and then maybe one in your face punch there at the end. So yeah, I think those are some of the things that I've learned through it.
Yeah. So for you in your writing, because Joy does some poetry, but she doesn't do a ton of poetry writing. But how do you think that critiquing poetry can translate into your prose?
Well, with poetry, it's, definitely analyzing every single word and making sure that you have the exact right word. And I think that that's something that sometimes can be overlooked when you're writing prose. And yet it is super important in prose as well.
Yes.
So having that mindset and being just mindful of that, of every word. Also, whenever we had to look something up or looking for synonyms or whatever, like I'm tucking that in my memory banks, like postscript is definitely one word, and we look it up on Merriam-Webster, because that's the dictionary that is of choice for Chicago Manual of Style. So if you're in the publishing industry, that is the style book. So Merriam-Webster, that's your go-to dictionary. Just things like that. So anytime I'm editing for a client or I'm critiquing for one of my critique partners, everything that I look up for them is something that I'm tucking away that I can remember when it comes up in my own writing.
Yeah.
So,
and I love that you said that critiquing poetry helps you make your prose concise. And I've noticed that too, like writing poetry. If I write prose after writing poetry, I tend to get the message out in a very nice package. A smaller package maybe is a good way to put that. But yes,
which is then stronger.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too, and I think that that's one reason why poetry is so interesting too, because it packs a big punch in a very small package.
It does. Very well put.
So yeah, I just wanted to see what that was like on your end.
Yeah,
so
I love that you asked me that. That's great. So you guys can see that, and we've talked about this before too, how we write different genres, but when we critique for each other, we're learning things that are coming into our own stuff as well. So
yes.
So
Joy's going to give us a QWERTY challenge.
Yes, I am. All right. So our QWERTY challenge for you this week is, we challenge you to send us all your critique questions regarding poetry, prose, or the creative medium of your choice. If you happen to listen in on those episodes when we did, kind of adapting the critique process to other creative mediums, and you happen to be in one of those other creative mediums and just want to ask some questions, or let us know what your experiences have been. We would love to hear from you, so you can drop us an email at editorial@logosandmythospress.com. That will be in the show notes, so you can look for it there, or hit us up on social media. So we are on all the social places.
Yes, we are. And there's a really nice handy link that gets you to the QWERTY Writing Life author pages where you can grab those socials.
That's true.
Okay.
All right.
Wonderful. Sign us off, Joy.
Okay. So you guys have a great week.
And go make something.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening until the end.
Seriously, you're a trooper.
Do you think QWERTY Writing Life is the bomb?
May, you just said the bomb.
Don't you censor me.
If you think QWERTY Writing Life rocks ice for real,
Oh my word.
please rate, review, and share us with others.
If you have questions about this week's episode or want to start a conversation, you can reach us by visiting QWERTYWritingLife.podbean.com.
We'll be back next week with more candid chats for you.